Philippe Marquis. Vroom, vroom. Vroom, vroom. Philippe Marquis.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Automobile. I am quite knowledgeable about driving habits in Canada because I've been studying the habits of Canadian drivers for a few months now. I'm a PhD in behavior analysis, and my team and I have prepared a report for which I will share some of our findings. And if you ever wonder why I'm the one doing that research, it's in the name, Dr. Automobile. The first behavior that we've analyzed is the following. You will see those drivers swerving right, left, driving in weird places where they shouldn't be driving. And the answer to your question, why, is this. They suffer from quadroocular. Not only do they have two eyes like I do, they have four. One here and one here. As you can see, my drawing skills are not very good, especially when you're looking at a camera. But those are eyes. Use your imagination. Because they suffer quadroocular, they have the ability to do this. They can look at their phone and still see the road because they have eyes on their forehead. So while they're looking down, their eyes are still watching the road. This is an amazing mutation called quadroocular. I wish I had it because that would help me multitask. It's not very practical for wearing hats because you'll always be in the dark with two of your eyes, but still very practical. I have seized the opportunity to develop glasses for those people. Those poor people, they still need glasses like we do, even glasses to protect themselves from the sun. I've developed a prototype here and it's patent pending. Don't you go stealing my idea. It looks like this. So as you can see, it protects the two eyes that everybody has, plus those at the top. This is gonna be a hit. That's the first behavior we have analyzed, quadroocular. We do recommend you stay away from those drivers because, as I said, they swerve right, left, and they brake very abruptly. This could be dangerous. Be careful, stay away from them, and you'll be safer. The second behavior we have analyzed is the following. You will notice that some drivers appear to be driving in a straight line, but suddenly they will turn right, left, doesn't matter, but they won't tell you. We have found the reason. They suffer from photophobia. Photophobia is the fear of light. They can't activate the blinker. They can't. It's too hard. It's scary. Who is not scared of that? Well, I'm not. I don't suffer from photophobia, but whoever suffers from photophobia is scared of activating the blinker. You'll never know if they are actually going to be driving in a straight line or turning. There's no way to tell because they won't tell you. They fear activating the blinker. To drive around those people, we do recommend you never assume someone is going to drive in a straight line. Well, if they tell you so, you can make the assumption, but still always be prepared. They may turn and not tell you. I'm telling you this for your safety. The third behavior we have analyzed, to tell you about it, I will test you. I would like to know if you have it. So I'll show you a few signs. And since I can't hear you, you can tell yourself, you can even speak. Others may think you're crazy, Doesn't matter, it's not part of the test. What do you see here? What is this? If you have short memory, write it down. If you have problems with your short memory. What is this? And what is this? If you've seen 30, 60, and 100, I'm glad to say you don't suffer from what's a max speed. What's a max speed? And yes, this is the technical scientific term, what's a max speed? Those who suffer from what's a max speed, when they drive on the road, by this time, they don't see a 30. They see 60. And those who drive by the 60, they don't see a 60. They see 100. And as you may have guessed, those who drive by the 100 see 100. They see this, 160. It is kind of difficult to gather information about those drivers because they drive so fast. We have gathered very limited information. For this reason, because of the speed they're driving at, we recommend clear the way, let them drive. It's not their fault. They're suffering from what's a max speed. Clear the way so that you can ensure your safety. We have determined that statistically, if those issues were cured, the roads would be between 67% and 82% safer in Canada. For this reason, we have developed a cure. And I highly encourage you to come see me if you suffer from either what's a max speed, quadrilocular, or photophobia. I've got my tools ready here to go. Come and see me. We'll make the road safer together. And it won't hurt much. Thank you.
Wendy Ireland, no help for the unconscious. No help for the unconscious. Wendy Ireland.
Madam Toastmaster, ladies and gentlemen, life was not the same after we arrived home with our adopted daughter, Faven, from Ethiopia. She was 11 and she didn't speak much English. And unfortunately, they wouldn't let us bring our translators home with us. So suddenly we had a problem. We could not communicate with our daughter at all. Charades became the game we played all day long. Charades for, this is your seatbelt. You can't take it off and lie on the floor while I'm driving. This is a grocery store. No, you can't eat apples right from the bin. Stop taking the meat out of the frying pan. It's still raw. Our kids got onto charades right away. Faven came to me with her finger extended. Mom, ouch. I kissed it better and put on a Band-Aid. 5 minutes later, she held her arm. Mom, ouch. And then her knee, her big toe, her chin. By the end of our first day, she looked like a patchwork quilt. Within weeks, Faven got an ouch in her mouth that was bigger than any Band-Aid. I took her to the dentist. It was bad. I said to my husband, Faven needs a root canal. Oh my gosh, how are we going to handle this? Handle what? It's just a dental procedure. You haven't seen her. She freaks out when I take her for a needle. She won't understand. I will be there. It's not going to be that hard. Oh, really? What do you suggest? We could sedate her. We're going to sedate our non-English speaking, new to us child so strangers can poke needles into her gums and dig out her nerves. The clinic didn't offer sedation, but Faven's doctor prescribed the medication with this one instruction: test it first to see how she responds. We meant to do that. We arrived at the clinic and gave Faven the sedation-laced juice. Every parent's dream. She should have fallen asleep. But when the dentist touched her shoulder, she bolted up, threw her arms through the air, and screamed like an animal under attack. I tried to hold her down. Who knew that a scrawny 60-pound girl could be so strong? I looked at my husband. Give her some more juice. And I could use a little myself. Faven finally settled. The procedure took way longer than expected. My husband's pager went off and he escaped back to work. When the root canal was done, Faven was passed out. So I sat down to wait for the dentist to come back and check us. 15 minutes. The staff started leaving. 25 minutes. The caretaker came in and started cleaning up. 40 minutes. They couldn't have forgotten us. The lights went out. They forgot us. I sat Faven up. She was like a wet noodle. I grabbed her leg and wrapped it around my hip. But as soon as I went to get the other leg, the first one fell down. I draped her arm over my shoulder, but when I let go, it fell away. I wanted to throw her over my shoulder like the heroes do in the movies and carry her out. I thought that might cause a bit of a scene. I half carried, half dragged her down the hallway. She was like an oversized rag doll, stuffed with rocks and completely stoned. The woman in the front office just stared. Oh my gosh, I need to pay. I put Faven on the clinic floor. The lady said, "It's okay, pay next week. Go, go." Really? No help? I picked Faven up under the arms and dragged her into the public hallway, past the 2-minute, the elevator, and down 4 flights of stairs. Tunk, tunk, tunk. Just kidding. We took the elevator. Finally, these 2 men will help. They didn't acknowledge us at all. What does a girl have to do to get a little help around here? If dragging an unconscious child out of a building doesn't do it, I give up. By the time we got to the van, I couldn't tell if it was sweat or tears running down my face. Faven started to wake up on the way home. She mumbled, "Please, God, Mof, Mom, ouch." I was so proud of her. She was using all English words. I got her home and settled her on the couch. Just then, my husband arrived home from work. He looked at Faven. He looked at me. See, I knew it wouldn't be that hard. Madam Toastmaster.
Lucas Steves, gone fishin'. Gone fishin', Lucas Steves.
My friends, I recently learned an important lesson, and I want to share it with you today because I truly believe it could completely change your perspective on life. It sure did for me. It all started in early 2018 when I received a phone call. It was my friend Scott. He said, "Hey, Luke, let's go ice fishing. I said, ice fishing? No, thanks, I keep ice in the freezer. No, you idiot. Fishing for fish through a hole in the ice. I said, that sounds cold and unpleasant and entirely unnecessary. I'm in. He said, great, I'll pick you up in the morning. And he hung up. 5:30 the next morning, long before I planned to get out of bed, my phone rings. I pick it up. It was Scott again. He says, hey, I'm here. You're here? He said, well, yeah, we got to get out before the fish get up. So I dragged myself out of bed. I got myself packed up real quickly, and I went out front to find my friend Scott sitting in my driveway with his truck loaded with more gear than I'd ever seen for any fishing trip. He had sleds, he had tents, he had stools, he had coolers, he had drinks, he had everything we were going to need for a month on the ice, even though we were only going for a day. We jumped in the truck and we started heading off. I said to Scott, where are we going? He said, we're heading to a place that I heard of on the internet called Windchill Lake. I says, Windchill Lake? Sounds cold. He says, no, you idiot. Windchill Lake. There's supposed to be a fantastic amount of fish there. It's stocked. I thought, okay, this sounds promising. And we made our way down the highway through the forest, up the forestry trunk road. The sun was starting to come up. It looked like it was going to be a beautiful day. We turned onto this bumpy little dirt track and started winding our way down a hill. And suddenly Scott stopped. He set the parking brake on the truck, turned off the engine. I said, what are you doing? He says, we're here. I looked around. I said, we're where? He said, we're here. We're at Windchill Lake. Isn't it fabulous? I looked up, and in front of me, I saw what I initially thought was a puddle in a ditch. He says, that's the lake. It was about 100 feet wide, maybe 400 feet long. This was not my idea of a lake, but he insisted it was stocked, it was going to be full of fish, and we were going to have a fantastic day. So I was excited. The minute I opened the door to the truck, my excitement faded quickly as the wind ripped it out of my hands, and I realized that the Windchill Lake would have been a far more appropriate name for this location. It was at that moment that I realized the day was not going to be quite as exciting as I thought. But I toughed through. I got the door closed. We got our gear loaded onto the sled for the insane, epic 50-foot journey to the middle of the lake. And we dragged our stuff out and we got to it. First, we had to drill a hole in the ice. I got the auger, the dull, rusty auger, and I started to turn it. And I turned it. And I turned it. About 20 minutes later, with burning forearms and sore biceps and aching shoulders, I was finally through the hole. Only 3 more to drill. This was going to be a long day. And then I turned around to enter our ice fishing hut that Scott had just set up. I wanted to warm up. Only Scott was not there. And neither was the tent. You see, it was a particularly windy day. Like I said, Windchill Lake, far more appropriate name. Scott was at the other end of the lake chasing the tent. It was blowing away. It was crazy. So I ran after him. We eventually got hold of the tent. We fought back the wind, dragged it over to where we were, set it up, spiked it into the ice this time. We were thinking ahead, and we finally got to fishing. We rigged up our rods. We rigged up our reels. We got our bait. We set the hooks. And we threw our lines down the hole. And we fished. And we fished, and we fished. Occasionally, one of us would move around, stretch, groan, wiggle our toes. But for 7 hours, we sat there, bobbing our lines down the hole, just waiting for a bite. Nothing. It was one of the most boring days of my life. I kept thinking, what are we doing here? We're freezing our asses off. My feet are wet. And we've been breathing these propane fumes all day. I was starting to hallucinate. It was crazy. And just as we were about to pack up and get ready to give up on the day, Scott jumped up. I've got a fish! I've got a fish! And he's pulling on his reel. I was thrilled. He was thrilled. I didn't know what to do. I pulled my line out of the hole. I got the net, and he was reeling like a madman. He said, oh, it's a fighter. It's a big one. And suddenly, it stopped dead. I looked through the hole to see what I thought was going to be a monster fish, It turned out to be an old fishing rod. I reached through the ice, I pulled the old fishing rod out, and then I pulled meter after meter after meter of used fishing line. And on the end of the fishing line was a hook, and on the hook was still a bait minnow. This was not as prolific of a fishing hole as we had thought. Scott, we packed up our gear and headed back in the truck, and on the way back to town, Scott said to me, "You know what? I think I'm done with fishing forever. I've spent thousands of dollars on equipment, hundreds of hours of my time, and I've never caught anything." I said, that's where you're wrong, my friend. You caught a fish today. Granted, it was on the end of somebody else's line, and they put it there. But you caught a fish. It's a fish. It's your first fish. A couple months later, my phone rang again. He said, "Hey, let's go to Pine Lake." It was Scott again. I said, "Pine Lake sounds great." We headed up to Pine Lake. We loaded up a canoe, and we headed out onto the water, trolling for pike. At the end of the day, Scott got a bite again. "I've got a fish, I've got a fish." He pulls it in, and this time it was real. It was a huge northern pike. I had the net ready. I scooped it up. I pulled it into the boat, and as I pulled it into the boat, the pike spit the hook out of its mouth and started flopping around on the boat. It was terrifying. I don't know if you've ever seen a northern pike, but they have a lot of teeth. Being a big guy, I was on the downhill side of the canoe. I had my paddle ready trying to fight this fish back. I hear Scott screaming, "He's loose in the boat! He's loose in the boat!" And I looked up just in time to see Scott with the anchor for the canoe raised above his head as he prepared to bludgeon the fish. And I thought of the floor of the canoe, but I didn't say anything. Now the hole in the canoe was bigger than you want any hole in your boat ever to be. And the panic as we almost sank was terrifying. But in that moment, I had a realization. You see, it occurred to me I could have avoided this situation by spending $20 at the grocery store on a fish. But I would have avoided an adventure and a story and an amazing time. So when you're going after goals, don't make it about the end goal. Make it about the process. Make it about the adventure. Thank you.
Mary Claire Campbell, Triple P. Triple P, Mary Claire Campbell.
The older I get, the more irritable I get. And I'm not even old yet. How am I going to make it to 80 without self-imploding? I think it all started about 4.5 years ago. What happened then, you ask? Well, I gave birth to my first child, a sweet, darling angel girl. I forgot that angels in heaven don't sleep. But you know who does? Yes, that's right, my husband. I'd find myself nursing this little angel for the 3rd time at 3 a.m. in the morning, and my husband would just be lying there, dead to the world, but very much alive in that burning pit of rage in my heart. And so my irritation was born. The first few months of life as an irritable person were an adjustment, both for myself and others. Gone are the days of being a considerate person. Yes, I am selfish now. But what I am most selfishly possessive over is that most glorious time of day, bedtime. No, not mine, of course. My children's. That time of day when I just tuck them in, say good night, head to the kitchen, grab some binge-worthy Ben & Jerry's, and sit, yes, just sit, and watch Jon Snow prance hatless on Game of Thrones. Do, 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 do. Mommy, tuck you in. You tuck yourself in, honey. But I don't know how. Well, how are you going to learn if you don't practice? Do, 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 do. Let it go, let it go. I am trying to let it go. See, me time lasts 90 minutes. Half of that is spent standing up, sitting down, fetching water, singing songs, and wiping bums for those last-minute potty requests. And that presumes all the other chores are already done. Vacation, that's just not in my vocabulary. You probably all think I'm the world's worst mother, but I tell you, I do try sometimes. You know how most parents will tell you they never really know what they're doing, they just hope for the best? It's kind of like skydiving. 100% of the time, you will hit the ground. It's just a matter of the path you take and your landing. About a year ago, I decided I should do what I can to avoid that crash landing. I signed up for Triple P, Positive Parenting Program. I wanted to, quote, raise healthy, well-adjusted children who have the skills and the confidence they need to succeed, unquote. I was not the only parent with this dream. The room was packed with parents, waiting for the instructor to tell them what the hell they've been doing wrong this whole time. Tip number 1, prepare in advance. Sometimes problems can be avoided by thinking ahead and planning. Makes total sense, right? Let me show you reality. Girls, dinner time. I picked the same color plate for you today, your favorite color, pink. Yay! But I wanted that pink plate. No, this is mine. Here's the thing about children. They're completely unreasonable. How do you plan for the illogical? You have to learn to react to the emotional. This is the crux of Triple P. Parents practice patience. You know, when your husband complains about how tired he is, and for the sake of your marriage and the future of your unborn children, you acknowledge him? This is what you must do with tip number 2, empathize. Understand where the other person is coming from and acknowledge their feelings. Ada, honey, I know it's hard not to get what you want, but seriously, why are we arguing over 2 identical pink plates? My children, they might not grow up to be well-adjusted, but I can still try for confidence with tip number 3, use descriptive praise. Ada, excellent self-control. Even though you were frustrated, you didn't hit your sister. Seriously, I found out halfway through that course that the instructor did not have children of her own. You know who else does not have children? Those sleep specialists at CBC interviews at 6 a.m. in the morning. They'll go on and on and on about how chronic sleep deprivation can lead to early death from things like dementia, heart disease, diabetes, you name it, I'll have it in 10 years. I can count on how many hands I've slept through the night since my kids were born. The worst part about it is they'll blame it on causes like stress, sleep apnea, insomnia, but never the hell parenthood. So this is for all you poor, sleep-deprived people like me out there. I empathize. I understand your hardships in life and acknowledge what you must be doing to stay sane. Triple P. Persevere proudly, people. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Michael Nunn, my shiny green suit. My shiny green suit, Michael Nunn.
When I was growing up, I was a messy kid. And I mean messy. I have seen the pictures. It's not pretty. When I would go out and play, I'd get covered in mud. I'd skim the knees out of my pants. When I would eat, I'd get food all over my face, down my top, on the floor. The dog loved me. My mum, not so much. I remember one day her saying, "Michael, you are so messy, you belong in a zoo. Next time we go, I'm leaving you with the monkeys." A bit harsh for a 4-year-old to hear, but probably fair. I remember the next visit to the zoo, clinging to my mum for dear life, just in case she was being serious. Despite this, I loved the zoo. And wouldn't you know, my first ever summer student job was at that zoo. I cleared out enclosures. I served ice creams. I cleaned toilets, made sandwiches. Not in the same shift, I hasten to add. But my favorite job of all was being a costume character. I could be Mickey the monkey, Chesney the cheetah, but my favorite was Terry the tiger. I was a shy kid, but under the guise of a costume character, I could act the fool, I could dance around. I loved it. And I'm pretty sure my dancing skills impressed, because when I finished university, I was offered a full-time job in the marketing department. Now, this was an office-based job. So reluctantly, I hung up my Terry the Tiger costume, but I got to replace it with my very first business suit. I loved this suit. I thought I looked amazing. In hindsight, probably not. It was cheap, it was shiny, and it was this really weird green kind of color. But I didn't care. It was a sign that I was a grown-up with a grown-up job. The first week, I was asked to take a meeting, and it was going to be with the editor of a local newspaper. And they wanted me to get some free publicity for Jerry the baby giraffe. I was a bit nervous. This was my first ever business meeting, but I was also excited. It meant I got to take my shiny green suit on the road. I sat down to prepare. I must have lost track of time, because when I looked at the office clock, I was already 10 minutes late leaving for this meeting. I ran to the car, I jumped in, and as I did, I heard this ominous tearing sound coming from my shiny green suit. I looked down, and at the knee was a tear in the seam about that big. Great, my first ever business meeting. I'm going to be late, and I've got a hole in my pants. Could things get any worse? I didn't have time to repair it. I just had to hope that no one noticed. I sped out of that parking lot. I was flustered. I got lost. I couldn't find anywhere to park. And when I did, I was now 30 minutes late for this meeting. I leapt out of the car and I sprinted the 5 blocks to get to the office, and I burst through the office doors. I will never forget the look of shock and bemusement on the receptionist's face. There in front of her was a man, well, a boy, in a shiny green suit, wheezing and sweating from running 5 blocks. But then I noticed a look of bemusement turn into this big, broad smile. And I thought to myself, aha, someone likes me in my shiny green suit. But then I noticed her gaze drop to my knee. I'm not going to get away with this. She's already spotted the tear in my pants. I look down. And I realized with absolute certainty, she was not smiling at me because she liked my shiny green suit. Oh no. Unbeknown to me, as I was sprinting the 5 blocks to get to the office, the tear in the seam of my pants had grown. It was now virtually down to my ankle, which would have been bad enough on its own. But oh no, the tear also went up the seam, all the way up the seam. It left nothing to the imagination. I was humiliated. And as I was looking down at my white, hairy, shiny thigh that has no place being seen in public, let alone in an office, as I was looking down, in walked the editor of the paper. He must have seen the look on my horror on my face, because without missing a beat, he just said, "Michael, that baby giraffe is so cute. I'd have given you the free publicity. You didn't have to show me your leg. Now put it away." With that, he burst out laughing. The receptionist burst out laughing. What else could I do but burst out laughing? We got some great coverage for Jerry the baby giraffe. I'm pretty sure it had nothing to do with my shiny green suit or my white hairy thigh. I remember that day as if it was yesterday, and I learned a valuable lesson. In my briefcase, I always carry a repair kit. There will be no more indecent exposure from this guy. Madam Chair.
Starting with the humorous contest, there was 1 time disqualification. In 3rd place, Wendy Ireland. Congratulations. Is Wendy's video on? I can't see because I'm on a different mode.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
there
on.
she is.
Yeah.
There she is. Congratulations, Wendy. In 2nd place, Philippe Marquis. Congratulations, Philippe. And in 1st place, moving on to represent Division E at the District 42 Humorous Speech Contest on June 13th, Michael Nunn.